And so, because I just put you under the train, I can introduce the next speaker. So, I have a fun introduction. I have a fun fact to share with you. And with this fun fact, I quote a person that I think that is here, which is Gabriele Santomaggio. Gabriele called the next speaker Santissima Sensini, protector of everything related to code. Serena has worn many, many hats. She does so many things. During the daylight, she's an enterprise architect. I think I probably misspelled the word, but that's okay. At night, she's one of the leading figures in tech, writing through her blog, The Red Code. And today she is going to talk about the cost-related challenges of AI. So a big applause for Serena.
Let me add the slides. Let me see if anything happens. Okay. Okay. We've got a little delay. Let me see. Okay, great. So, thanks for joining this session. I see that some of you are like shy or maybe getting into this thing a little bit slowly. So I'd like to warm up a little bit the public because this topic is going to be a little dark, okay? So if you think that working in the tech area is challenging, but it also worth to be work in here, I'd like to clap your hands. Okay. Okay, great. A little bit of enthusiasm. So let's try to dive in this topic. So first of all, this topic came to me in November 2022. Does someone of you remember what happened in this date? Great. Okay. So when I first looked for the news about ChatGPT in this date, the first news was this one. So WhatsApp released this wonderful feature about the possibility to message yourself. So basically, every time you find an interesting link, you can send it yourself. But not only this, this guy was right. On November 2022, OpenAI released the ChatGPT first version. So they claimed to build a model called ChatGPT. That is quite wrong. It's not a model, it's an agent, which interacts in a conversational way, okay? So it's something, okay, that it's pretty similar to a human conversation in terms of similarity, in terms of the output text. But with this kind of release, okay, a lot of concerns are raised. So for example, someone was asking, ChatGPT is a GPT-3 chatbot from OpenAI. What could I ask? And some people started to ask this kind of question. Are you sentient? Do you think? Do you have a conscience? Okay, are you conscious? And I think the kind of answer that you can find from this kind of models, I'm using GPT-3, but you can test it on whatever model you want. It's kind of funny because it says basically I'm not capable of sentience or consciousness, I'm just a large language model. That's the truth, okay? And the truth behind these kind of models is that they don't reason at all. They just use statistics to find the next word on your answer, basically, as your SwiftKey keyboard on your smartphone, okay? It's pretty the same thing. Okay, but the consequences or the reactions, let's say, to this news. On the same day this news happened, GPT-3 is making even more art obsolete, okay? Why? Because basically, GPT-3 represents the beginning of the Gen AI models in terms of generation of synthetic data, synthetic content, okay? But what I found interesting was this kind of publication that uses a very difficult sentence. We need to talk. This is the most difficult sentence you can ever heard from a person. We need to talk about ChatGPT. Okay, without going deeper in the publication, I think the whole image represents the publication because it says ChatGPT potential impact on teaching, papers, and whatever, regulation also. And when I was reading this publication, I focused on one word. The word was impact, which is the impact of this kind of tools, okay? Impact means the reaction to a certain action. So which will be the consequences if we want to. Each impact has a cost, okay? Cost not only in financial terms, but also in human cost, okay? And each cost has to correspond to sustainability. So basically, how do we make sustainable the thing we use? So going into these three words, basically, I'd like to take to this journey, okay, when I basically spent the last 2 years investigating on what these kind of models have done in these years. So first of all, let me ask you a question. You can raise your hand, okay? How many of you use ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever you like, for question answering? So you pose a question, I don't know, I've never used Jira. What is Jira, for example? Let me summarize Jira. Raise your hand. Okay. I've done some estimation, okay? I estimate that the 70% of you could have answered yes, okay? And I was pretty close, maybe something more. What about code development? No, no, just my brain. Okay, code development. Raise your hand, I haven't seen you. Okay, okay. So, pretty close, okay, maybe something more. Just for fun, just to, I don't know, just to test it, to see are you conscious, which is your name, or maybe doing something like a jailbreaking, because I know that maybe some of you have tried this. Raise your hand. Don't be shy. Okay. Okay. This is the result I expected. Half of you. Okay, great. Keep this number in your mind because they will be useful later. So, talking about sustainability, we have to look at 4 kind of areas, okay? One is financial, okay, because sustainability is not environmental sustainability. Then we have social sustainability, which is the human cost. Then we have, for sure, the environmental aspect, but also the life cycle, so the sustainability from a software point of view, okay? Let's start with the financial. So, I will be maybe unfair, maybe unpolitically correct, saying that some of the most recent LLMs have claimed to spend less than they really spend to training. Okay, for example, I'm talking to DeepSeek. DeepSeek company claimed to spend 6 million on their training. That wasn't exactly the same amount of dollars they spent on the training, especially because they've used chips that weren't declared as a real and active cost during the training. Some chips from NVIDIA that cost like 10 times the cost they declared. So the real cost was around 1.3 billion, so around 10 times, 10 times more, even 20. This is a table representing the estimated cost of some of the most common open source model. We have DeepSeek, we have Llama. Maybe you've used Llama for a different kind of reason. It's very popular. It claimed to had 50 to 100 million cost, but only for the model, the two with 70 billion parameter, okay? For the most recent one, where we have 400 billion parameter, the cost haven't been declared, for example. What about Mistral? Mistral is one of the most cheapest, but only per CPU, okay? Imagine you need at least 20 CPU to train that kind of model from scratch. So the cost is pretty, it's not so pretty cheap. About Granite, how many of you do they know Granite? Okay, they came from IBM. Okay, it's a family of open source model from IBM. They do a lot of advertisement about what they are doing in terms of green economics and green sustainability, but and also about ethical concerns, but they haven't declared anything about how do they have trained the model, how do they have measured their accuracy, their performances, and so on. So I was thinking about the concept of open source. So open source basically means the free exchange of knowledge and ideas. Are we sure that these kind of models are really open source or are really following the philosophy of open source? This is an open question. Let me go with the social sustainability, okay? So, first of all, in terms of social sustainability, we have observed in the last 5 years new words coming out. Words we know that represent the world we live, so the society, okay? So if I get you in the word digital labor, okay, this is a word representing the workforce that makes us able to work, to use the tools we use, to have Gen AI tools, to have also social media, for example. And with the word digital labor, we came with click farms, data labeler, and free labor. Okay. I don't know if you know data labor as a job position, but it's a very known position in some countries. So, for example, starting with this Forbes investigation, this is not so recent, but there is a most recent version I couldn't find, unluckily, where Google and Microsoft were claimed to use Kenyan workforce to basically train their data. Okay, how do they do that? So basically, to train a model, we need data. That's clear. Where do we take this data, and how do we classify that data? We do it using people. Okay. In this publication, this investigation said that they were using, obviously, some of the poorest villages and tech laborers in Kenya, since AI is nothing without human labeling. Okay, this is not the saddest part, luckily, because with an investigation of the Times, they discovered that OpenAI was using Kenyan workers paid less than $2 per hour to make ChatGPT less toxic. What does it mean? We have said that to train a model, we need data. How do we avoid that that model says unintended things, for example? Okay, now we are building the so-called guardrails, okay, to avoid this kind of behaviors. But the reality is that we need to train, we need to teach those models which is good and what is bad, okay? This investigation said that the premise was simple, fed an AI with label examples of violence, hate speech, sexual abuse, all in text form. They took from the darkest places in the internet all this text related to this kind of situation, fed it into a model, and let some human moderators to be sure that the content was real. I couldn't find a reference, but I remember, so I won't use numbers, okay? But I know that on this kind of groups in Kenyan, They were mostly 1,000 people. 300 of them have went under serious psychological traumas and after that, okay? So the question was, okay, using ChatGPT, using these kind of tools, I'm not blaming ChatGPT in specific, okay, represent a great economic opportunity for different reasons. But which is the human cost? First of all, working condition. They work obviously under serious conditions. The skill development, because if we take training data regarding technical topics, we need technical people to verify that content, okay? So we need people that is technically prepared. It's obvious we need to worry about ethical concerns. Do we really need to do something to get to this goal? So my open question was, human labor is really a necessary evil to get an artificial intelligence system, generally speaking, successful? Don't we have any other way? Then let's go with environmental, okay? I quoted Valeria Salis in this aspect because she's more expert than me, so I decided to copy her meme because I'm not so good at meme. So when we talk about environmental, we have to distinguish between the training phase and the inference phase because each one of them has a different impact. So the training phase is when you train the model. You teach the model what to do in a certain situation, okay? The inference phase is related when the user uses the model. So when you ask something to ChatGPT, for example. Let's go with some numbers. So 500 tons and so on of CO2 per training, okay? Maybe, I don't know if some of you can make a comparison of consuming that amount of CO2, but just for the sake of this talk, that same amount is the fuel necessary for a car to get twice the distance between Earth and the Moon, just to say. And then we have, for example, 5 grams, more or less, of CO2 per query, okay? And you may wonder, what does it mean? Half of the charge of your phone. Okay, so each time you use ChatGPT and you ask the most stupid question, if you charge your phone half full, it's the same amount of CO2. Okay? Last but not least, the life cycle, because you can see that more or less every 2 weeks a new release of an LLM is being released. So I was wondering, do we need this model to be released so fast? Which are the real advantage of seeing all these models coming to our environment? So the life cycle is not so easy because if we think of retraining or training from scratch a model, we need to think of data. This MIT article that's very interesting, for all the articles I left the references, said that basically we are running out of data. Okay, all the models we have so far have used all the data we have available, even if we produce tons and tons of billions of data every day by using just the social media, for example. Why this is the title, so clickbait, because basically it says we have to find more data to train our model. And how do we find new data? So basically, when a new model is trained, they have to distinguish between low quality data and high quality data. There's like a threshold, okay, that says this is good for training, this is not good, okay. The person who conducted this investigation, Pablo Villalobos, said the line between these two categories can be fuzzy, okay? It's not equal for everyone. So the question is, when we are going to review this kind of threshold and make it lower to be sure that we have more data on where to train our model. Okay? This is my open question. I don't have an answer really, but it's something I'm a bit worried because the result that came from some models is not so accurate, and maybe the quality is going lower and lower during time. So the consideration was one way to overcome these data constraints would be to reassess what's defined as low and high, because that's really relative, okay? And that's the kind of reflection I was making by myself. That being said, so what should and could I do, okay, to be better in using this kind of tools? Because honestly speaking, we won't be stopping using them, okay? It's the truth, okay? So, like in the best beer advisor, okay, the first thing I will say on usage, please act responsibly, okay? So, you may ask yourself, for example, do I need to use that specific model? So, is it necessary to use the best model, the most performant model to just know what Jira is? Maybe I do not need that. Is this model using green energy? There are models using green energy you may try to use as an alternative, for example. Is the only way I can get my answer, okay? I can reach my goal, for example. Because sometimes we use ChatGPT or Perplexity just to get an answer, for example. So we need to be better in using such tools because we have to know their value but also their impact, as I said at the beginning. And then on the training, if we need to train a new model, because some of you may need to do it, do you really need to reinvent the wheel? I don't know, but many of you may know, for example, Hugging Face. Hugging Face is one of the most known repositories to publish your model. And there are already tons of models trained on different kind of domains. So for example, medical domains, regulatory, economics. So do we need to do something from scratch, or can we use someone work to make it better? Also, there are a lot of open source small language models that have the same performances of the large language model, but on a smaller domain. And also the LLMs 1-bit, and also the quantum LLMs, I haven't mentioned them, that can be the future of training, okay? In this table, I've tried to recap all the open source models I think they are valuable in this moment, especially from Mistral AI and Bloom. Okay, Bloom is very interesting because it's a project maintained also by Hugging Face and Big Science that's maintained by Google, basically, okay? But Google and Microsoft, but as academic investment, okay? They have published all the training phase, all the data, all the phases related to what they have done in terms of training. So it's a very interesting use case also for academic purposes. That being said, if in the next months we try to reduce the usage of this kind of purposes from using LLMs, we could find alternatives that are more than obvious. So for example, question answering. Do I need to use ChatGPT? No, I can use a simple search engine, collect the information I need, and then make it, summarize it to ChatGPT, okay? But I first find the relevant content, okay? Because remember, the so-called references reported by Perplexity, for example, are not only verified references. So it's up to you to find real, actual content. Code development. This is something real personal, but I honestly don't like to let these kind of tools develop my code because I want first to understand the problem and then try to explain it and then try to write the code. I think this is the right approach. So maybe your problem hasn't to be solved by ChatGPT. Maybe you need to take notes of your problem, try to describe it, and then remember that we grow thanks to Stack Overflow, okay? And if you use it just for fun, just join more tech events. They are funny also, okay? So, if you think AI will replace your job, please remember that won't do it unless we want to, okay? Just a ego slide, I'm Serena Sensini, I'm an innovation architect leader in Daedalus. I'm the founder of this blog and I'm the author of 5 textbooks. And I really like to thank you for joining this session.
Wow, that's there's a dark side.
It's a dark conversation.
Yeah, but it's got to be had.
We're both wearing like dark clothes, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am certain there's going to be some really interesting questions from that. Does anyone have questions that they want to jump into?
From a dark.
When speaking about the environmental impact,
Yeah.
you pointed out 550 tons of CO2 per
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
What do you mean by training? Training from
Phase.
scratch?
Just one training phase.
From scratch.
Yeah, but one iteration. So if you need to retrain the model just for feature engineering, that's another training.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I want to ask you a question. Right now, there is a challenge for our as coders that we need to improve our ROI.
Okay.
I don't know how to say. So I understand that right now we have a cost, environment, social, etc. But how we can balance between the fact that we need to produce more, because right now will be start a fight between us, because every time what I think is that more jobs will be lost because AI will take place. So how can I balance between try to be ecological, try to be aware, and maintain my job and food for the next day?
It's a wonderful question, and I think every one of us has its own opinion. So I will give you mine, but I'm sure that some of you may think differently, okay? So first of all, for me, it's not about having a race, but having a fair game, okay? So if these are the costs, for me, it's worth evaluating alternatives. And I'm talking as an innovation leader that works mostly with artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. So it's an impact that has huge commitment in terms of every one of us, okay? I know that's difficult. I don't think at all that AI will replace us totally, but will change the way we work today.
Oh, yes, it's the fact that non so come si dice egoista in inglese?
Selfish.
Selfish, but if I need to achieve something and be better than the other people to avoid to lose my job or to avoid to in the future, I can be selfish and say, okay, I don't care, I will use O3 mini I 2 times only to be sure that that response is okay, because even if I use another models that are more less expensive in energy, but are not good for my job, is a waste of time for me.
Yeah, again, I think it's a good question. I think we are posing the focus on the wrong thing, because you are demanding the model to make you better. But what can make you better as a professional? So I think the real problem is, and I know that none of you may think the same, is to learn to improve ourselves. Because we demand these kind of tools how to do our work. I made a lot of tech interviews. I see that people, when I try to propose them a code challenge, they use ChatGPT, they copy and paste the code, and they are not able to explain the code. So I won't blame people using ChatGPT to code, but I will blame them to not using them to learn something they don't know.
Okay.
So that's basically use them as a support tool to grow yourself, not give them the power to replace you, because it's you giving power to them to replace you.
Okay.
It's a kind different of perspective for myself.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you won't agree. It's as I said, it's kind of subjective.
Okay.
Here.
I said that it's a hard topic.
On the same line, more or less.
Okay.
So if you are in a situation where your job is demanding and you have life commitment, family, so you don't really have that much time to improve yourself in even starting to really use AI so much. So you risk to stay a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Other than start to take a lot of your time off and learn. What's your suggestion, points of view?
Well, that's a tough question. I can say that I'll do a lot of things, really a lot of things, and I use this kind of tool to increase my productivity. I can measure it, honestly, but I know that since using Perplexity or whatever, my productivity has increased a lot. But I'm trying to understand where I really need to use these kind of tools and when I need to step back and think that I need my critical thinking. Because sometimes I get bored and I demand the tool to do my work. And that's not the kind of thing I want. But it's kind of hard, I think.
Okay, we have another question there.
Just very quick question. Because last month I was at a conference in Stockholm, and they were talking about similar aspects such as yours. And one thing that one sentence that they said was AI will not take jobs; it will take tasks. So I was wondering what you think about this. It's a take that I personally like, and so I don't know what's your idea about that. If it's something that.
Yeah. Once I read this quote. I don't know if I will translate it correctly, but the quote was, artificial intelligence is not smart unless you can explain which is a smart thing to do. So basically, when we are able to translate the tasks we do every day, they stop to be something intelligent. When we developed, for example, GitHub Actions, so we thought that doing certain kind of things were not only related to sysadmin people, but also to developers. So we changed the mood we see these kind of tools. Why don't we do that the same with artificial intelligence? Just because we have this kind of anthropomorphic fear that an agent that has the same way we talk can represent something dangerous. It's not dangerous, it's a statistical moment. I really insist on that, because asking for consciousness is stupid. Maybe someday we reply, yeah, I have a conscience. It's not the same, because we neither can answer if we have a conscience and what is really. So I think the balance is in this. The task is something we can explain. The job is something that collects a lot of tasks, but also a lot of critical thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would say another round of applause for Serena, please. And this is yours.